What's up guys, I just woke up but it appears that Woj just dropped a huge bomb for our first big trade of the offseason. So the Boston Celtics are sending Kemba Walker, a first round pick, and a 2025 second round pick to Oklahoma City for Al Horford, Moses Brown, and a second round pick. Yeah, this is probably one of the weirdest and one of the most unexpected trades that I have seen in a long time. For the first part, I think we all did see that a Kemba Walker trade was coming. He just wasn't making it work with Boston this year, and I think a lot of people knew that he was going to be wanting out of it this offseason. And of course, the Boston Celtics like to trade away anybody who doesn't live up to their expectations because they want to be the San Antonio Spurs just so badly. So them trading away Walker isn't a surprise, but going back for Al Horford while giving up draft picks for him and Moses Brown, that is just really confusing to me. So we take a look just at Walker's stats. Kemba Walker averaged 19 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists on a 42% field goal percentage this year. And no, I wouldn't really call that good, but I also think the reason you can argue some of his stats are down are just because he didn't get nearly as many shots as he usually does, thanks to guys like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. But so they're bringing in Al Horford, and this is actually the one part of the trade that does make a little bit of sense to me. Al Horford is coming off of a 14.7 rebound season, averaging 45% from the field. Horford is a decent three-point shooter who should help Boston spread out the floor, and he was on that Boston Celtics team just a few years ago, so I can kind of see the sense in making him return, but I don't think getting Al Horford back is going to make up for the fact that you lost Kemba Walker. I think Kemba Walker just has much more trade value than getting back an aging center who can really only shoot threes. Al Horford's going to be 35 going into the next season, so he is really only going to help the Boston Celtics win now, but outside of that, there isn't really that much of a future Al Horford provides for Boston. And speaking of futures, there were also some draft picks that got moved around in this trade. So Boston gave up the number 16 overall draft pick for this year's draft and the 2025 second round draft pick to Oklahoma City. In return, they're getting a 2023 second round draft pick. Why? Kemba Walker, I think you can argue that Kemba Walker is a better player than both Moses Brown and Al Horford. So why would you have to throw in a pretty decent draft pick to get Al Horford back too? And I don't know if the Thunder know this, but there's actually more to basketball than just collecting draft picks. I think that they now have 3 coming into this up year's draft, and I just don't see why Boston would give up a 16 overall pick. Now, I'm not knowledgeable on the draft specifically to know who they should pick, but a 16 overall pick can still be pretty valuable. That's good enough to get a guy who this is good enough to get a guy who can come contribute off the bench right away. But instead, you're getting Al Horford, who, like I said, is a decent center, but he's also aging. You get a second round pick in 2023, which is basically worth nothing. And the other part of this trade is Moses Brown. So Moses Brown, going into next season, he's going to be 22 years old. He's actually 7'2", so that may be a little bit of benefit to Boston. His per 36 stats were also nice, averaging about 15 points and 15 rebounds on a 45% field goal percentage. Or excuse me, 54% field goal percentage. So I think he could actually be a pretty solid backup center for Boston, but I don't think he's at the point where he's going to be starting for them just yet. Boston has kind of just been a black hole at centers. They really just haven't been able to find any solid contributor, as they've kind of just been rotating through guys for the last few years. So what can we exactly make of this trade for these two teams? Well, for Kemba Walker, I don't really think too much is going to happen. To be honest, I would be surprised if Kemba Walker actually ends up playing for the Thunder. Knowing the Thunder, most likely they're going to end up trading him for, of course, more draft picks, or probably buying him out of his contract, and Walker's going to enter into free agency, which personally I think is the best case scenario for Kemba Walker. He is definitely a better player than what he showed off this year, and I think that if he gets on the right team, that may be able to help him out a little more. As for the Boston Celtics, I do think this trade helps him out a little bit at center. Like I said, Al Horford isn't a bad center, and he's played on Boston before, but the problem is he's just not going to be the guy for the future, and honestly, I don't think Al Horford's going to contribute to much more winning than what Kemba Walker is going to do. And kind of the same thing with Moses Brown. I think he could be I think he could be a good potential future prospect for Boston, but I don't think he's going to be doing much more than maybe 20-25 minutes per game for them coming off of the bench. But I just think the fact that they got Kemba Walker and a current first-round draft pick, I think the Thunder just completely finessed Boston, and I don't think this is a very good look for Brad Stevens, given that this is his first trade as the basketball operations manager. The Thunder know exactly what they're doing, they know their spot in the league, so they're really just flipping every possible aspect just for more draft picks. And like I said, having 3 of them going into the season, and they're probably going to trade Kemba Walker or buy him out. That way they're going to have some of their cap space open. The Thunder are just going to be in an extremely good position because they are just building the infinity gauntlet of draft picks. So for the Thunder, I definitely think this is a big win. They know that they aren't winning anytime soon, but they're definitely preparing and they're going to be ready for the next 4 to 5 years. For Boston, I just have to say why. I think you could have gotten better for Kemba Walker. I think you could have just done Kemba better as a player. I think you owe him a little bit more than that. And then you're going to get 2 guys back, which Al Horford, maybe you can get 1 or 2 years out of him. And maybe your second round draft pick. It probably won't turn into anything. So I still don't really know what kind of value that's going to be providing to you guys. And maybe I'm missing something here, but according to this, Al Horford's current contract has him for next year $27 million, and then the next year $26.5 million. So I don't think Boston is really freeing up a ton of money. Al Horford still has probably one of the most overpaid contracts in the NBA. Not saying that he's a bad player, I'm just saying that he's getting paid a lot more than what he's worth. So you're kind of just trading away almost one guy who's overpaid for another guy who's just overpaid. So Boston isn't exactly freeing up a lot of cap space. They're getting rid of a high quality point guard that they probably could have gotten a better thing for. And they also lost their first round pick for this year. Yeah, Brad Stevens, you gotta get your stuff together, because this is not exactly how you want to start off your career in the front office. So yes, in my opinion, I think this trade was a huge win for the Thunder, and for Boston, it definitely didn't get you any better. I don't think Boston's going to be a lot worse. If anything, it's going to allow Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum to get more touches, but this trade definitely isn't going to be putting Boston in a position to compete. Obviously, they're still going to make the playoffs, but they just aren't really any better than they are now than they were before the trade. Alright guys, that's it for this one. I'm going to go back to sleep because I don't know why I'm making a video so early in the morning. I'll catch you guys later.